Hey everyone, so today we're going to take a look at how to get better at soloing, how to get better at improvising. And specifically, we're going to look at how to use a loop or a backing track as a means of an end, a means of being able to help us have an avenue to develop those techniques. Okay, so the first thing you might be thinking is, practicing improv? Is that really a thing to practice? Isn't improv supposed to be off the cuff? Well, in reality, typically what happens is that when you're improvising, what you're actually playing is things you've played before, or very similar to things you've played before, and more specifically, things that you're very comfortable with, things that you've developed a lot. You know, if you're a rock drummer, you've never played jazz, it's probably pretty unlikely that you're going to start improvising out some jazz, right? So that is the whole purpose behind doing this improv, is to just allow yourself to really spend a lot of time exploring different avenues, figuring out how to do different things at different tempos with different feels, so that you have more tools in your little toolbox, right? Now, of course, you could just sit at the kit and just go to town, right? And play all sorts of random stuff. And that might help a little bit, but there's a couple limitations with that. One, there's nothing forcing you to keep time, right? To keep the beat, to not accidentally rush or drag. It's better to practice your improv, just like everything else, to something that's keeping proper time. Why not just play to a standard click, right? Just a metronome going crazy. Well, usually this doesn't really inspire you too well, right? You hear the cowbell or, chimes or whatever is going that's keeping the beat, and it's not going to make you feel anything. And that's what you really want. You want something that's going to make you feel something, so that you can come up with some different parts for that. So yeah, we're going to do a loop, but we're not going to just find something on the internet. We're going to set up our own loops today. I have a Roland Octapad, and that is what we're going to set up. That way I can also, in addition to being creative with the drumming that I'm doing, I'm going to be creative on the loop that I'm setting up. This way I can set up some loops that are fast, some that are slow, right? Some that are busier, more sparse, some that are like more upbeat, more relaxed. That way I can find different things that I can do in all of those different avenues. I'm going to demonstrate this. I'm going to show you how to set this up on the Octapad really quick, and then I'll demonstrate some stuff. But it's really important when you're doing this. I'm just going to show like a minute or 2 minutes of improv per loop that I set up. But when you do this, you got to spend a lot of time. Just play it for like a half hour straight and try to exhaust every single different thing you can think of. And then maybe the next day, come back to that same loop and try to do, another 30 minutes of different things from the day before. Okay, so let's get started on the first loop that I'm going to work with. I'm going to be using what they happen to have as pad number 24, this Pan Pacific is one thing that I happen to like. Now I'm going to have this set up as a 2-measure loop. So I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but I'm just going to go into the settings for phrase loop, and I'm going to switch this to 2 measures like that. And I'm going to go into the standby mode. Now, as soon as I do this, it's going to start playing a click. And before I start, there's 2 more things I actually need to do. Now, I'm going to set the tempo to whatever I want, which in this case is, I believe I want 92. And I'm going to do the quantize. Now, I'm not going to worry about actually saving this stuff or anything. I'm just setting up a one-time loop just to kind of jam to it. But you do need to do this before you get going. Set the measures, right? Obviously, pick your pad, set the measures, set the tempo, and the quantize. Now, what is quantizing? Well, imagine you're going to play this thing, and your performance may not quite be perfect, and you're going to be very dependent on this thing. the click is not going to be playing in this particular case once the phrase is set. So the click is only going to play for as long as you need to get through to record the whole phrase, in this case, 2 measures. Now, after that, it's only the performance, and if the performance is off, you trying to solo to it might be off. So what does a quantizing do? It tries to correct your performance. So for example, let's say quantize here was set to 8. So this really means 8th notes. So if the smallest subdivision that you have that you're going to be playing is 8th notes, then that's what you want the quantize to be. Now, in my particular case, I'm going to be doing 16th notes. And I'm not doing any 30 seconds, okay? So it's going to be safe for me to do this quantize to 16. If I was trying to do flams or something like that, then this won't quite work out right, but I'm not going to do any flams for this particular case. So at this point, I got everything set. All I need to do is just start playing when I hear one of the downbeats from the click. And once I get through the 2 measures, the loop will just play back again, and I can just jump into my soloing. So that was all well and good, but not super interesting on the just a 2 measure setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to do something with 4 measures. I'm just going to go and increase this to 4, and we're going to switch to a different pad. I actually have some of these pads already preset as my favorites. So I believe I want, what was this? Afro Cuban. Oh, Afro Beast, that's it. And I'm going to go into standby, and I need to switch to 110. And I still want quantize to be at 16. So now I'm good to go. Let's jam on this one a bit. Okay, so those things are getting maybe a little interesting, but they are, maybe not what you would typically think of as, if you had another person in place here, right? Not another guitarist or bass player. So we're going to do something that's kind of bass oriented. We're going to switch to what they call the octave bass setting, or octabasso setting. And we're going to keep this at 4 measures, which I believe it should still be at right now. Yep. And we're going to go into standby. And for this guy, we're going to speed it up even more than we had before. Go to 120. I'm going to keep the quantize at 16. And let's see what kind of magic we can make happen with this. Okay, so I got one last trick to try to make things a little bit more interesting. So, we went from a 2 phrase to a 4 phrase earlier, right? That tried to help make things a little bit more interesting by having a longer phrase. We tried on the Afro beats. I just did kind of an improv performance, kind of see how things went. Some of them were kind of planned out performances. So those are 2 different things, but let's go with an 8 measure this time. But we're not just going to make one long 8 measure phrase. I'm actually going to split this up into 2 4 measure phrases. Okay, so kind of almost like an A part and a B part. They're going to be very similar. It's going to have a similar feel, but it's going to try to help things kind of go back and forth a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit more musical that way. So in this case, like I said, we need to go and set this to be 8 measures. And we need to pick the pad that we want. In this case, I am going with, I think it was number 5 here, this Lost Melody, which I thought was pretty cool. And I'm going to keep the quantize at 16. And we're going to bring the tempo way down on this guy, down to 88. And let's see what fun we can have with this. So I hope you guys found that useful. Again, the key here is to spend a lot of time on it and to play things you purposely would not normally play, things that you might be a little uncomfortable with. This is the time to hammer through them, because then later on when you are improving, you'll be able to do this more cleanly. You might even start to impress yourself on some things. I do, of course, have lots of other videos coming out, more lesson-related content and gear review and recording tips and all sorts of good stuff. So if you don't want to miss out, then don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, peace.